Well, welcome everyone. Welcome, James. James, thank you so much for these lovely classes.
Thank you.
Which I've been enjoying, and I'm sure you are too, because it's not forced attendance and you're all here. You're presumably enjoying it. And it's a one thing to be able to look at the original Sanskrit itself, so you get the sense of the meaning on an intellectual level, but not only the meaning, but the whole spirit of it, which I think James is very good at imparting. Thank you, James. We'll just kick off without more ado. So thank you, James. Bodhisattva.
Thank you very much. Before we plunge into the Bodhisattva again, just about to start verse 5, there was an interesting question raised by John English. John, I can see you here. Good. It's hi, John. The question about Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit, and John asked whether we would be kind of, I forget the way you put it, whether we'd be doing any or studying any specifically Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit in these classes. Now, Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit is a phrase invented, I think, by Franklin Edgerton, who wrote these monumental books, A Dictionary of Buddhist Hybrid Sanskrit and A Grammar of Buddhist Hybrid Sanskrit, rather making it look for the unwary as if it were a different language, a separate thing. But it's not really a separate thing. It's rather like, for example, you have classical Latin. And then as the centuries, you have classical Latin, Virgil and Ovid, Cicero in his speeches, what we know as the high classical Latin. And as time went on, you saw certain vocabulary, certain usages coming into Latin that for the classicists say, oi, that's not standard classical Latin. My Latin teacher would have told me off for saying that, for writing that in my exercises. So it's a kind of linguistic continuum. We see the same in English. A real purist, English speaker looking at the word in English, we would say envisage, for example. 30 or 40 years ago, it was a bit of a shock to the English speaker to hear the Americans saying envision. Ooh, that's an odd Americanism. Nowadays, everyone is saying envision as well as envisage. It comes as no shock to us really to hear a Scotsman saying wee instead of little, or a wee bairn. We all know what a wee bairn is. We don't say, well, he's speaking Scottish hybrid English. We say he's speaking English, but you can detect there's a Scot speaking there. Or an Australian, g'day cobber, we just about, hope there aren't any Australians here upsetting. We just about recognize, no, of course it's English, a lovely form of English, isn't it? We recognize it as English with an Australianism in it. Now, there are texts that are written in Sanskrit and that are virtually pure Sanskrit. Take the text of the Lankavatara Sutra, that I'm just trying to prepare a study edition at the moment, not the entire sutra, but of certain parts of it. And reading through it, it's like pure classical Sanskrit, but you see the odd Paliism in it. You say, oi, that looks a bit Pali, a bit of Pali influence coming in, but it's not a different language. There are other texts that are really quite a mixture from a different time and a different place. So Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit then is not one monolithic language. It's just a general term to speak of Sanskrit, which has some slight Paliisms in it, or lots and lots of Paliisms, or lots of kind of irregularities in it that would be, you can perfectly well understand, but just aren't classical Sanskrit. And the same actually happens with Pali. Within Pali, you get the earliest suttas, you might call pure Pali, but as time went on, and there was a kind of an increasing Sanskritism, you see Sanskritisms coming into Pali. But it's a mistake to say, no, that is Pali, that is Sanskrit, anything in the middle is hybrid, Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit. Treat it all as a kind of linguistic continuum, a linguistic continuum with no strict boundaries. And for example, in the same text, say in the Lankavatara Sutra, I was almost surprised to read a couple of weeks ago such and such hybridisms appear in the Lankavatara Sutra, because so far I haven't found any. It's pure classical Sanskrit. So the answer is, you'll come across it from time to time. If you know Pali and if you know Sanskrit, you'll see these things, and often you won't even notice. If you've got an eagle eye for grammar, then you might notice, but don't fall into the trap of thinking it's a different language. It simply isn't. As for the Bodhicharyavatara, for the purists, so far as I've been able to detect so far, and I've been through the entire lot with the edition I'm doing, I can't detect anything that I don't recognize as classical Sanskrit. There may be the odd thing that has passed unnoticed because it's very slight. And of course, somebody like Shantideva, he cannot have been unaware of Pali, probably very, very good at Pali. He would have known the very likely to have known the Pali scriptures. So undoubtedly some influence must have crept in. Whether he consciously excluded it from his Sanskrit writing, we don't know. Anyway, the basic message is don't fret about what's Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit and what's not. We're doing classical Sanskrit. As you go along, you'll see these odd things. Oi, that sounds a bit Pali, but it's just part of the continuum. So we'll go back now go into our hopefully pure classical Sanskrit from Shantideva, with our, sorry, let me just arrange the screen here. I'll bring this text up onto the screen and share. Oh, sorry, I got the wrong one. Here we are. Sorry, Mr. Technology fumbling again. Here we are. Bear with me. I'll share screen. 3. Share. Sorry, just let me have a technological fumble and I'll be back with you. Okay, have you got, can you see my shared screen? Jolly good, thank you. Right, I will read it for you slowly. Swayutyan Maryamana-stvam kramenaiva na pashyasi kitapi nidram yasyeva chandalam mahisho yatha. Again, Swayutyan Maryamana-stvam kramenaiva na pashyasi kitapi nidram yasyeva chandalam mahisho yatha. Just imagine this being said in the most exasperated voice, as I said before, by Shantideva, screaming at people to wake up. So, pashyasi, I'll highlight it here. Pashyasi means you see. Napashyasi, you do not see. In Sanskrit, we very often have a question marker at the beginning of a phrase, sentence, or clause, to indicate that it is a question. One of these is kim. These are kim napashyasi, do you not see? Another one is less used is api. Api napashyasi, do you not see? But it's not necessary to use it. Often the sentence in speech, the sentence would be indicated by tone of voice. Here, the question, I'm assuming, yeah, actually, is it a question at all? Okay, it's ambivalent here. It could be a statement, you do not see. It also could be a question, do you not see? So it could be a question, but without an explicit question particle like kim or api. So pashyasi, there's a slight irregularity here. I'm just going to share my iPad. Good. Hopefully you've all got the iPad. Okay. This root, drish, means, it's the root meaning to see. And a seeing very often you make a verbal noun by just adding ti to the root. Drishti literally means seeing, and then a view. A view as in an opinion. And the word for right is samyak. And G by Santi, samyak drishti in Sanskrit means correct view, harmonious view. There's a lot to that word samyak, which I love to deal with. Those of you who are in my Pali class will have seen me dealing with it with great delight and at great length. It's often translated as right, but there's more to it than that. So samyak drishti, right view. Most of us, I imagine, will be far more familiar with the form samadhi, which is just the Pali version, samyak drishti, samadhi, often translated as right view. Drish is a somewhat irregular verb because it does not, you do not use that form to conjugate it in the present. You use a different form of the verb. So he sees is not drishati, that form doesn't exist. It's pashyasi. Pashyati, he sees. We have the same phenomenon occasionally in English. Very few verbs do it. For example, the verb to go. In the past tense, we don't say goed, we say went. Now we use a completely different verb to make the past tense. And we have, of course, the example in, my favorite example in Italian, the verb andare, to go. Thank you, Mariano. I thought you'd like that. We don't say, if it conjugated regularly, we'd say, ando, andi, anda. Well, we don't. Vado, vai, va. And then back to andiamo, andate, and then the plural vanno. You see, so you're actually using two completely separate roots to conjugate that verb. There are not many in Sanskrit. This is the only common one. So drish makes its present tense in pashyati, he sees. Incidentally, the verbal noun of that is from the present base pashyana, which in Pali, you'll all know this one, passana, and was vipassana, seeing into, insight, vipassana. That's where it comes from. So in Sanskrit, vipashyana, seeing into, seeing through something, seeing into it and behind it. So, napashyasi is you do not see. Or it could be a question, napashyasi, do you not see? If this were being spoken, then of course you detect from the tone of voice, it could be either. Now let's go back to here we go, back to the text. So svayutian, we have the, back to iPad now. Svayutian, I'll separate the words here. We have the very common root yuj, meaning to join, from which, of course, we get the verbal noun, yoga, which just means junction, joining. We very often see in Sanskrit this j in one form of the word becomes a g in another, or a k to ch. When you see the g and j and k and ch in the roots, the root alternating between one another, just think of English, because we do it occasionally in English as well, as we have our verb to speak and the noun speech. We have the verb break and the noun breach. We have the verb to leak and the alternative verb leach. So when we're making the distinction in speak and speech, we're seeing a reflection of this yuj and yug and so on. So an old form, no longer used, as far as I know, as a separate verb, and an very old form of yuj is the root yu without the j on the end. And that made a yuta, this ending pa. So a yuta means a group, something joined together. So a yuta, then actually now used for animals, now used in Sanskrit, came to be used for animals generally. So a herd or a flock. So a yuta, a swayut, so and a yutya means somebody, a herd member, a member of the herd, a member of the group is a yutya. If you put swa, swa means self. So a swayutya is like a member of your own group, a member of your own herd. So what Shantideva is saying in this verse, look, you're just like, in the next line, you're just like an innocent buffalo, the sheep to the lamb to the slaughter. You're just being taken to be slaughtered. Do you not see these swayutyan, these members of your own herd, all lining up to be slaughtered? You aren't different from them. These are your swayutyan, that's the accusative plural. These are the swayutyan that you see, the members of your own herd lining up. And look out, because you're standing in the same line as them, waiting to be slaughtered. You're all heading for death. So these swayutyan, swayutya, and the ending an is the accusative plural. So swayutyan napashyasi. Do you not see these fellow members, these your own herd members, the fellow members of the same flock or herd? Maryamanans tvam kramena ivana pashyasi. Maryamanan, okay. Being slaughtered, being killed. Now, there are the two things we want to talk about in this word. The root, or variation of the root Maria, the root actually is mri, meaning to die, and this ending mana, meaning being done. It's the passive participle ending. Now, this is one of those lovely examples where you might think, this is just a series of noises. What does it really mean? We see both main elements here in our own language. First of all, the mra we all know, the same as mors, mortis, death, mortality, mortal. It's that same mra, right? That same root. So I think I've said to you before, the word moor, as in moorland, actually, it means dead land. Dead in the sense that you can't plant crops there. It's just rough grass, fine for the sheep to graze, but you can't really grow fruit or vegetable or crops there. That's the moorland, the dead land. Now, a causative verb So to cause to die is marayati. This the ayati ending, very frequent as a causative. For example, from the root gum, to go. By the way, if there's an a in the root, sometimes it lengthens, sometimes it doesn't. You just learn as you go along what it does. So, gamayati, to cause to go. The root bhu, to be, this one does lengthen the a, bhavayati. Bhu, to be, bhavayati, to cause to be. Here's a word, you know, bhavana is the verb like vipassana, bhavana. So bhavana, bringing into being or developing. So it's your cultivation. Your bhavana is your practice. And in Buddhist terminology, your bhavana is the practice, the thing you work on, the thing you work to develop. Anyway, back to marayati. So mrit, to die, marayati, to cause to die, therefore to kill. And there are other words for to kill. This is one of them, you know, to bring death to somebody, make it die. And the present participle, being brought to death, being killed, is maryamana, marayati maryamana. This mana, by the way, the ending menos, written Latin script, in Greek, means being done. For example, there are a few words in English that retain it. Lego, I say in Greek. Lego, prolego. I say in advance. You know, prolego. In other words, to make an introduction. And we have the word on the tip of everyone's tongue, prolegomena. So prolegomena used to be used by learned academics a long time ago. There's things said in advance, introductory comments. So your prolegomena, things said in advance. The mena is the neuter plural in Greek of the participle, something that is being done. So the prolegomena, things being done, the things being said in advance. So maryamana is being killed. So swayutyan maryamanan napashyasi. You do not see, or do you not see swayutyan, the members of your own herd, maryamanan, being slaughtered. These are people like you, the members of your own group. You're seeing it all around you, going to their death. Now, you see in here, Maryamanan becomes Maryamanastvam. Oops, that little bit there. Sorry, the cursors are going funny. It's just a bit of Sandhi. Don't stress out over it yet. It's just in Sanskrit. Whenever you get a word ending in an N, followed by another word beginning with a T, that becomes by Sandhi Maryamanastvam. Don't bother about that. It's a technical bit. In the notes, for those of you who want to look it up, euphonic Sandhi, yes, it's MacDonnell, paragraph 30. There we are. There's a link to it, or a note about it. So it's not grammatical, as it were. It doesn't make a grammatical difference. It's purely a phonetic thing. So on its own, swayutyan maryamanan tvam kramenaiva napashyasi. So maryamanam, being killed, kramena is the root kram, meaning a step. By the way, one word is from a chankrama, formed with a reduplicative syllable and sorry. I want to be should be looking at my. So you should have screamed at me when I was writing on my iPad without showing the iPad. Kramena, there's chankrama. Chankrama, which in Pali is your chankama, where you step along. It's in monasteries, your chankama was your walking meditation path, the thing on which you did your kramati, you stepped along, your chankama. So kram, and the noun just krama, meaning a step. And just as a Sanskrit idiom, if you put that in the instrumental, kramena, literally by the step, is just idiomatic Sanskrit, meaning one by one. You're doing kramena, step by the step, one by one. So do you not see your fellow herd members, the members of your own group, being killed one by one? And the eva is just this emphatic part. Even just one by one. Look at them, one by one. You're next. You can't escape it. Kramenaiva. So it's Swayutyan, Mariamanas, Twam. Twam just means you, singular, Twam. Very often, and mostly, it can be singular, thou. Mostly it's omitted. It's often used inserted for emphasis. It's the same with with languages like Italian and Spanish. Mostly you don't need to say io vedo, tu vedi, and so on, but you would if you're emphasizing it. Vedi, you see. Io non lo vedo, ma tu lo vedi. You say, I can't see it, but you can. Have I got that right, Mariano? Thank you. So if you're not emphasizing you, just it's obvious from the verb who you're talking about. But if you're emphasizing it, you, in Sanskrit, just as in Italian and Spanish and Latin, it can be inserted. It's a stylistic or emphatic thing. So if this tuam, you, had been left out, it would have exactly the same meaning. But by putting it in here, inserting the tuam, there may be an element of emphasis, or you, yes, it's you I'm talking to. And that would tie in, because you're seeing your own herd members going to their death. Now you, it's happening to you as well. Wake up, you. So I'll just recite this verse again. Hopefully you'll get most of it now as I recite it. Get back to the, here we are. Swayutyan Mariamanas Twam Krame Naiva Napashyasi. Napashyasi, do you not see Swayutyan, your fellow herd members, Mariamanan, being killed, Krame Naiva, even one by one, as if they're lining up in an orderly fashion to be slaughtered, which in fact they are, as is emphasized now in the next line. Tatapi nidram yasyeva chandala mahisho yata. Read again. Tatapi nidram yasyeva chandala mahisho yata. The eagle-eyed among you will have seen that this M ought to have a dot under it, which I will put there. Sorry. Well, there we are. The M has a dot under it. It's the Anuswara. So, a Mahisho, Mahisha, oops, sorry. A Mahisha is a buffalo. And of course, it's the tame Indian buffalo of the type that lines up like a good buffalo to be slaughtered. It's actually from the root of that word, it means the big one, the great one, from Maha, great, and Maharaja, we know that word. By the way, Maha and Mahesho, let me just go to this root Mah. The idea is power or size or greatness. And we have it in lots of words in English and all through the Indo-European languages. So the English word might, as in mighty, it's from that same root, powerful, the Mach root. The German word Macht, meaning power, the Wehrmacht, the defense force. The word machine, oddly enough, English form machine, machina, it's from that same, it's that which enables you because it gives the human a power to do something that with his own bare hands, with his own body, he couldn't do. So the machine is the empowering thing. So Mah, great. Mahisha, the big one, the buffalo. So Mahisho Yata. Yata is as. We got the pair. Tata, thus. Yata is the correlative as. So, for example, do as I say. This yata tata is a very common pair. In English, we'd say, do as I say. In Sanskrit, we would say, as I say, thus do. Yata vadami, as I say, tata kuru. Yata vadami, tata kuru, as I say, thus do. So, usually the yata will come first in the sentence and tata after it, but you can reverse that as happens here. Tatapi nidram yasyeva chandala mahisho yata. We could change this round here to chandala mahisho yata tatapi nidram yasi. So a chandala means a butcher. So double chandala. And indeed, even in modern India, in modern Hindi, you have the chandal, which is either means specifically a butcher or more generally a reference to the lowest caste. So the chandala mahisha, then a butcher's buffalo, like a buffalo ready to be slaughtered by the butcher. So chandala mahisho yata, like a butcher's buffalo, meaning like a buffalo waiting to be Marna, slaughtered by the butcher, and waiting kramena, waiting one by one to be slaughtered. So yata, you could rephrase the sentence now to yata chandala mahisha yata chandala mahisha, like a butcher's buffalo, tata nidra yasi. I'll just fill that in a moment. So like as a butcher's buffalo, tata, thus in that way, nidram yasi. and the other words were tatapi. The tatapi is tata api. Api is just an emphatic word. Note, I mentioned api at the beginning as the marker of a question. If api comes at the beginning of a clause or a sentence, then it will indicate that what follows is a question. Whereas attached to a word, it has a different meaning. The meaning is emphatic. So tata, thus. Tata api, which of course then becomes by santi tatapi. So tata, thus, tatapi, meaning in exactly that same way. It's emphasizing the thus. Tatapi, in exactly that same way. So yata chandala mahisha, as a butcher's buffalo, tatapi, in exactly the same way, nidram yasi, you are going to sleep. Now, nidra, you may have come across the expression nidra yoga, which is like sometimes described as sleep yoga. The root dra and dra, which is very similar, of course, and from the same word, by the way, as the Latin root dorm, sleeping, dra. And we have it in English. If you're drowsy, it's that same dra. So nidra means falling into a sleep. By the way, the more common root for sleep is swap. But dra is just it's rather like, we still have that distinction between, as in English, you're asleep or you're drowsy. That same distinction in Sanskrit, swap, actually sleeping, but dra, kind of dozing, feeling drowsy, dozing off. Nidra, falling into drowsiness, falling into a doze. So nidram yasi. So we know the root, very common root, I, meaning to go. So we have it in Latin, ire, third person singular, it, and he goes out, exit. So our English word exit, the it of exit, is from that same I, to go, ex, it, out goes. Ya is an alternative form of that same root. They're linked roots. It's like a lengthened form. It also means to go. Now, you all know it, even though you may not know you know it. That's one of the joys of learning Sanskrit and Pali. There are so many things you think you don't know. Then you explain the etymology of it, where it crops up in another word. So, ooh, I did know that. Ya is one of them, because you can make a verbal noun out of it with yana. The going, something you go in, means a vehicle or a carriage. And if it's a big one, it's a Mahayana. There we are, Mahayana. It's the big vehicle, the big going, or the big thing that you go in, the big cart. So nidram, and the verb ending, second person singular, si. So yasi, you go. Nidram yasi, you go into a drowse, you're going into a sleep. Nidram, so nidra, go back to the top here. Nidra is the nominative form, it's a feminine noun, and it makes its accusative with nidram. Accusative of motion, ya, to go. Yati, he goes. Nidram yati, with the accusative that he goes asleep, he goes to sleep, falls into a sleep. You go to sleep. Nidram yasi. So putting the sentence in a more English way, so yatha chandala mahisho tatapi nidram yasi. So like yatha, like chandala mahisha, the butcher's buffalo, tatapi, tata thus, tatapi, in exactly the same way, exactly thus, just like that, tatapi nidram yasi. And here it's yasi eva. You see a yasi eva, yasi plus eva. You've got the word ending in an e followed by another vowel, so it becomes yasieva by regular sandhi. So I will read this through again. And preferably don't even follow it on the text, just try and hear it as I say it. I'll do my best to say this in my northern Indian Brahmin accent, so far as I can. Swayutyan maryamanas tvam kramenaivan napashyasi tatapi nidram yasyeva chandalam mahisho yatha. And again, swayutyan maryamanas tvam kramenaiva napashyasi tatapi nidram yasyeva chandalam mahisho yatha. So I think that was what I need to do there. So this might be a good moment if there are any. I don't know if there are any questions in the question box.
I think there are a few questions here, James.
Okay, thank you, Desmond.
This is quite an interesting. This is a fun question.
Ooh.
Do you think Sherlock Holmes' nemesis, Moriarty, came from Mariarty?
Ah, that's an interesting one. Of course, with a writer like Conan Doyle, these little subtleties might not have been lost upon. Moriarty, yes, the Moriarty, the art of death, or indeed, if he was thinking of the Sanskrit causative, the art of causing to die.
Yes, the killer.
Yes. Well, as a serious academic question, the answer is I simply don't know. But as a fun question, I would love the answer to be yes, because that's part of the fun of what we're doing. It's not all grim study. These questions make it more fun. Thank you for that one.
Yes,
answer is I would love it to be so. But as an honest scholar, I can't quite say yes.
It's a fantastic connection, isn't it? There's a question here from Epriya Mathura. And is there a connection between Yuthya and Ayuthaya, Ayodhya?
No, I'm afraid not. So we've got the root yu, which is the same as the yuj. Ayodhya that's from a different root. That's from the root yud, meaning to fight, or by extension to conquer. But yud basically means to fight. And if you make a gerundive out of that, it's yodhya, meaning fightable, something that can be fought against, with the subtext of a reasonable prospect of winning. If you negate that, ayodhya means unfightable. In other words, so strong that nobody will dare fight you. So ayodhya, unfightable. You know, your strength will put people off fighting. And in Thai, I think they say that ayuttaya, Ayutthaya, it's that or something like that is the name of their city in the north, the Ayodhya. Maybe in a bit of a nemesis there because they called their city Ayodhya, and of course it was sacked by the Burmese. There we are. So it did turn out to be fightable after all. But there we are. No, they are separate routes, the Ayodhya.
Yes, and thank you very much, James. There's a question here from Tulika who says, the question was, what's the relationship between Prakrit and Sanskrit?
But as for Pali, and Prakrit rather, it's from our root kri, meaning to do or to make. And the past participle is krita. And it's cognate with cre, the Latin creare, to create. It's that same word. Means to make or to do. And if you put Sankrita, and because of a rule of phonetics in Sanskrit, an S gets inserted there, but it's basically Sankrita, putting together, composing, and then refining, because in English we just write this word as Sanskrit. It's that same word, Sanskrita, Sanskrit, it's the same word. Sanskrita means put together, refined, composed. As Panini, he took this colloquial forms of the language, the variant forms, the slightly, not exactly chaotic, but slightly messy grammar of the old Vedas, and he composed it into his grammatically regulated language. He didn't create the language, but he abstracted the underlying rules and he put them together. Sanskrita, put together. Prakrit is the opposite. The Sanskriti is the verbal noun, Sanskrita. Sanskriti would be the verbal noun, just meaning putting together, composing, refining. Prakriti is the kind of opposite meaning, the pra, forth, out. Prakriti actually is an ordinary word meaning nature. Nature is in the open countryside and the way things are, natural development. So Sanskrita is all gathered together, put together as rules. Prakrita, just multiplying forth like nature, organic development. The Prakriti, being set, made forth, is the opposite of Sanskrit. So if something is, then to make an adjective out of that, Prakrita is the opposite of Sanskrita. Sanskrita, composed, refined, orderly, regulated. Prakrita, as it happens, your natural speech. So the Prakrits and the Sanskrits simply means the natural speech, the ordinary speech of the common folk, the way people spoke, as opposed to the Sanskrita, your highly ordered, regulated speech with its strict rules of grammar. So the Prakrits simply, and then we can make it just, we use it now as a noun in English, that the Prakrits are the natural languages. So for example, in ancient India, you had Magadhi, Awadhi, you would have these various forms of language, which were known as the Prakrit, the natural languages, the languages as they were naturally spoken by people, in contradistinction to Sanskrit, the orderly language. Pali is one of the Prakrits, so one of the natural languages, because it was a language as actually spoken. And you could say that the modern languages of India, Gujarati, Marathi, Hindi, and so on, Bengali, are modern Prakrits. They're the modern natural languages. So that really is all that Sanskrit and Prakrit really means. So Pali is one of the Prakrits. There were many of them, and any form of natural language, naturally spoken language, was called a Prakrit. So I hope this goes some of the way to answering your question, Tulika.
Yes, I think there is there's any relationship between prakrita and prakrit with practical and practice or not? This comes from another question.
Oh, prago in Greek prago to act, praxis. Prago. I wonder if there is. It doesn't strike me immediately, but it's something that I will check. I think not, but it could be. I will check. So
And
praxis. So our word practical from the Greek praxis, meaning an act, a doing. So practical means you're actually doing it rather than theorizing about it. But let me check that one for next time.